have brought to focus the fact that we are facing, as a species, all the same issue. And each of us, for the first time in history, has the ability to inflict on the other simply by continuing economic growth potentially catastrophic results unless we change the way we face our form of economic development, the way we use energy, the way we produce energy, the way we use our natural resources. So this has become, if you wish, a unifying principle. The same type of unifying principle that guides the interfaith religious movements that Fuse is based on.
There's a big role that an interfaith effort could play. And what I mean by that is not so much that it's rooted only in religion, but rather the teachings of the different faiths that we have, whether it's Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Shintoism, whatever, or just plain spiritualism. If we take some of the sayings in the Bible where God said to man, behold all these things before you, you can have dominion over the animals that walk the earth, the birds that fly in the sky, the fish that swim in the water, the earth. You have dominion over this. And I think we can take that phrase, dominion, and change that from trying to control and manipulate it into learning to live with it and understand its nature and its cycles and how we as human beings can be part of that cycle and be good stewards of it rather than masters of it. Somehow we have to move from that concept of dominion to perhaps cooperation. And a lot of times that's going to take the values that we learn in our religion.
This same unification that the problem has produced, the fact that we're all in the same boat under these very challenging conditions, in my view, creates a unique opportunity for global cooperation. Creates an opportunity for us to realize that we have to put in place values that in fact come from religious considerations. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that advises the United Nations Climate Convention demonstrated that these carbon emissions that are produced by humans are indeed hitting the atmosphere with these potential catastrophic consequences. And so the nations of the world understood that we needed some form of global cooperation. It was then that in the year 1997, in Kyoto, Japan, a group of 163 nations came together and agreed on a global limitation in the use of carbon, in the emissions of carbon in the planet. And from there emerged what's called the Kyoto Protocol. I worked on the Kyoto Protocol for many years, creating what is now called the carbon market. That was my suggestion, to create a market where nations could trade property rights on how to use the atmosphere of the planet for emitting carbon dioxide. That carbon market is now potentially the largest commodity market in the world. In the first year since the Kyoto Protocol was ratified in the year 2006, the market traded $30 billion US dollars, and out of this, 8 billion were transferred to developing countries for clean energy projects that reduced approximately 30% of the European emissions in that year.
Using what you called the carbon cap and trade turned out eventually to be very lucrative for countries that engaged in that exchange and creating the market for that. I think understanding what that meant in terms of how it can be applied here in this country was a mystery to me, because how do you move a country that rejected the concept initially, and how do you engage them again to entice them to think about it so that there might be a possibility of success in its implementation. You have designed some ideas around that would interest, that had already gotten the interest of India and China, and that's an important thing to roll out in this country. No one's talking about it.
The carbon market is trading a very unusual type of commodity. It's trading a global public good, the right to use a global public good, which is the planet's atmosphere. And it brings us all together to understand why we are all in the same boat. Science has shown to us that unification is needed, and interfaith values can help realize it. This is the bridge between science and religion that I perceive. And from the economic science point of view, this creation of the carbon market is a new type of market. A type of market which doesn't have the same zero-sum game from all other markets. There is more cooperation involved. And in fact, through the theorems that I have established in mathematics, more rights to emit were provided to the developing nations. Therefore, this market joins the two faces of the same coin, market efficiency and some form of equity, by giving more rights to grow, to emit, to use energy to the developing nations. This type of market, in my view, will be the key market for the 21st century. As it turns out, knowledge has very many of the same properties of the global atmosphere of the planet. It is also a global public good. And between knowledge and environmental assets, we will be soon trading a completely different type of markets, therefore creating a new form of capitalism in which some form of cooperation will emerge that will overcome the zero-sum game that has characterized capitalism until now. So I am very optimistic for the future in my dreams. And at the same time, I know we are facing potentially a global nightmare right now. So through this series of videos, we're going to be meeting key scientists, politicians, historians, people who are really on the action, people who are involved, and will provide that link between the sciences that are needed to understand the problem and the interfaith values that symbolize how we need to come up with solutions. All nations must appreciate that each one of them has to do unto the others what they would like them to do to themselves. And also, there has been a unifying principle in the protocol, which is that the poorest nations, according to the Climate Convention, are not going to be asked to make undue sacrifices. And out of this came a realization, which is embodied in the Climate Convention, that the last should come first. So those two principles that I just mentioned are practical policy, but in fact, if you think about it, they are principles that Jesus of Nazareth was teaching thousands of years ago. So here you go. The sciences now have come up with policy recommendations that are embodied in religious principles. Treat each other the way you want to be treated, and the last should come first. This is the beginning of the future.